Good morning. I'm Tom Bankston, publisher of BankBeat magazine and the BankBeat.biz website. We are recording a BankBeat Quick Takes video blog. My guest today, Jeremy Skoglund, a trust officer at First Western Bank and Trust in Bismarck, North Dakota. Good morning, Jeremy. How are you?
Good morning, Tom. Very good. Thank you.
Well, we're very happy to have Jeremy with us. He has been selected a Rising Star by BankBeat magazine. That's a program we've been running every summer now for more than 20 years. Readers submit the names of rising stars in the industry, and we select them and do stories, and now we're doing interviews. So it's really an honor for us to connect with folks like Jeremy. First of all, you've been in banking now for about 18 years, and I'm just curious, over that period of time, what are some of the significant changes you've observed in the industry, in the profession, in your own career?
Well, I think, Tom, probably the biggest, there's maybe a few. I think banking in general has stayed the same. It's a relationship business, but technology has definitely been the biggest thing I've seen. And of course, even in the last 3 months, we see it even more now. We're doing these Zoom calls and so forth. But even back when I started, I think my bank was maybe we were a little behind the times, but we didn't have a website. We didn't have individual emails for all the employees. And obviously that changed, and now it's changed even more with technology and what we're able to do. But I think just that ability to maybe communicate with our customers different ways, for them to communicate with us, and just give them new products or new ways to access different products has been definitely the biggest change I've seen.
How about in terms of the customers themselves? Have you seen their needs change, or maybe their expectations for a bank changing in the last 20 years?
Definitely expectations, and I think it goes with that technology. Now they know banks are able to do these things. Now they kind of expect it. Like when we had that first bank that I was in, and we didn't have those capabilities, we didn't have online banking, it wasn't expected. Customers were fine. They loved to come in and just visit with you one-on-one. So it wasn't expected at that time as much. There were some customers that still would ask about it, but now it's to the point where customers don't ask about it. They just expect that you have online banking, that they're able to do everything from their phone or tablet or whatever device, that they're able to communicate with you 24/7. And when they come up with a problem, they expect it to be fixed fairly quickly. So that expectation has definitely changed, but I think that goes with the technology and just business in general. As technology improves and makes those things available to everybody, then they expect it, and really should expect it. And banks are, for the most part, good about keeping up with those things. So yeah, I think that's probably the biggest change from a customer standpoint that I've seen.
And you are a trust officer now, but you have worked in a variety of roles in banking throughout the years. You've been a credit analyst, you've worked in operations, you've been a loan officer, you've been in charge of IT, you've been in charge of audit, you've been a CFO. How do you navigate from one position to the other? It seems a little bit unusual that a person would go through so many different jobs that require different things, maybe even different background and different education. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah, it is kind of different, even when I think back to all the jobs I've had. And I think most of them kind of came up out of almost necessity. The bank maybe needed a role filled and asked me to fill it. And while some of them were scary to jump into because I hadn't had that experience, I think what I've learned in banking is, and the reason I kind of went into banking, my mother-in-law out of college, she said, or she was future mother-in-law at that time, but she said banking would be, she was a banker, she said that would be an excellent avenue to look at because of all the options that you have in a bank. And as you kind of listed out some of mine, there are so many. You can be even in marketing or IT and have a place in a bank. And so I knew that was that was an area I wanted to be in, just because there were so many possibilities. I wasn't quite sure exactly what I wanted to do for the rest of my life and for my career, but I knew that getting into the bank would give me all of those opportunities. And so as those opportunities arose, some of them I jumped at right away and thought this is going to be great. Others I was a little hesitant and maybe needed to be coaxed into doing some of those things. But overall, I think what I've learned and what I've enjoyed the most is having those options and having that ability to help wherever I can in the bank. So yeah, it's a little unorthodox but for me, I enjoy so many different things. Being able to do that at work and have so many different areas that I can work in just was appealing to me and has been since I started.
And I'm curious if there have been any guiding principles, or maybe there's a mentor in your life who has helped you along your career path, or maybe it was just always the desire to expand your knowledge or the desire to succeed. But would you say there's anything that has kind of guided you or helped you along your career path?
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's been plenty. I know I've had a couple really great mentors. I think my first supervisor, he told me right away. He said he put me in this credit analyst position. That's what I was hired for. He said he has a lot of people that he's supervising, and he's definitely going to look out for ways that I can improve, and whether it's trainings or schooling or whatever. But he said you need to be on the lookout for that. I can't look out for those things for everybody. So I want you to come to me, and I may not say yes to everything, but if you see something, bring that to my attention. And I don't know if that helped me or if just my willingness to learn new things, but maybe a combination of both of those. But I am always looking for something that I can learn, something that's new or something that's going to help me improve in my current position. So even now, I'm sure my supervisors hate it when I come to them, and I'm always, I think this training would be good for me, or this schooling, I would love to do this schooling. And I don't always get a yes, but I've learned that if I don't ask and I don't look for those things, I'm going to be stagnant and I'm not going to learn. And I think I'm definitely a learner. I love that aspect of any role I've had, is that you have to learn. And so that's what over the last 18 years, I'm constantly looking for ways to learn, ways to improve things, ways to improve myself. Yeah, I think that definitely, that first mentor I had helped me kind of spur that and drive that through my career.
You started out working in Williston, and now you work in Bismarck, as a change you made about 6 years ago. Those are pretty different kinds of places to live and work. Williston, sizable, but in the scheme of things, kind of a smaller community. Bismarck, a larger community, state capital and everything. Do you notice any differences in terms of being an effective banker in a smaller community versus a larger community, or maybe in terms of customer expectations?
Definitely. But when you say Williston being a small community, my wife and I grew up in small towns, like 1,200 people, small town, North Dakota. And so when we moved to Williston and started out our careers, that seemed like the big town. But comparing it to Bismarck, I would say, yeah, there's definitely differences. One of the biggest things is in the smaller communities, you're able to know everybody. And it doesn't take long to know everybody. You still have to get out and be part of the community, but it doesn't take long to get to know just about everybody in the community. Where we knew coming to Bismarck, that was going to be different. It was going to be harder to make it feel like a small community. But once we were able to kind of get into like groups in the community, church and those kind of things, and even our neighborhood, we got to know people, and you can make it feel like that small community that we were used to. I think from being a banker, definitely the difference, especially in Bismarck, is just competition. So there are a lot more banks in the community. So finding ways to differentiate yourself or making those relationships with those customers takes a little bit more thought and a little bit more time than maybe it did in a smaller community where there weren't as many competitors for the business. I would see that as probably the biggest difference I'm seeing in the last 6 years coming to Bismarck.
Let me ask you to reflect on the last 3 months, which have been a very unusual time, really, for all of our country as we deal with this pandemic and the various ways it has affected different businesses. Various business practices have changed in that time. What do you make of the changes? Do you like some of them? And you mentioned, for example, we're doing more Zoom meetings. How about some of the other things that maybe have changed in response to the pandemic? What's your thoughts on that?
I guess, well, as a trust officer and definitely anybody that's working that face to face with the customer or constantly meeting, that's been a struggle, and it's been tough to even meet with them or sit down and do what we were doing before going through things. So it's a challenge. You have to come up with ways to still communicate with your customers, let them know you're there, but also be cognizant of some of them want to be health conscious and not necessarily meet face to face, and we have to be there for them and make arrangements that are still going to work for our customers. But that's been challenging, definitely. And as you can see, I'm working from home, have been for the entire times because of health things in our family. So that has been a challenge, being in a position where before in some of those other positions it would have been quite easy to work from home. Most of the stuff I was doing may have been back office stuff anyway. So trying to adapt and make changes working from home and still trying to reach out to customers, whether it's through Zoom meetings, which we don't necessarily do at the bank when we're talking customers, just from a security standpoint, but just communicating with groups that we're part of, or doing things like this where we're reaching out to other colleagues and coworkers. That has been a change, and not a bad change. I mean, it's worked out well so far. And but yeah, there's definitely a lot of different things that banks, we had to make adjustments, and I think for the most part, community banks have done a good job on that.
I think that's right.
I know
I would agree. It seems like banks have done a pretty good job adapting where necessary. We've got about a minute and a half left, and so I'm going to ask you to wrap up by just reflecting on your commitment to the North Dakota Bankers Association. You're very active with them. I believe that you are the chairman of their services subsidiary. That's a big responsibility. I know you're also active in the Dakota School of Banking, which NDBA is involved with. So just share a little bit about why you're willing to invest so much in that.
I think it starts with that NDBA's their banking school. I attended that early on in my career and just saw the benefits to everybody, and saw how NDBA is there for the bankers and the banks, and has all this kind of training. So I've utilized a lot of that and just see that as something that I can help with to bring that to others in the banking industry. Because while we're competitors for the most part, we want to see everybody succeed. We don't want to see banks fail. So if we can offer ways for bankers to learn, I'm all for that. And that's why I've kind of stepped in and where I can and tried to help just promote NDBA and make sure people are aware of everything that they offer.
Okay. Jeremy, thank you very much for spending some time with us. I'm Tom Bankston, publisher of BankBeat magazine and bankbeat.biz website. This has been the BankBeat Quick Take video blog. Jeremy Skoglund from First Western Bank and Trust in Bismarck, North Dakota has been my guest. Thank you.
Thank you.